To order, could we have roll call, please?
Iverson.
Here.
Schatzinger.
Here.
Gallops.
Here.
Kotsky.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Heather Brewer from the Ripon Emmanuel United Methodist Church. I'm brand new in the community, and I thank you for having me tonight. Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for this evening and these people gathered here together to be about the work in this community. We thank you for being in their hearts to be here to make a difference tonight and to make Ripon a beautiful and wonderful community to be living in. We ask that all voices be heard tonight and that your will preside over us all, here and now and always. In Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second. Is that Terry? Motion's made by Terry, second by Doug. All those in favor, or any discussion first? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That is approved. Next, we do have some public comment. This is an opportunity for citizens to come before the council with comments and concerns on any current city issue, knowing no action will be taken tonight. I ask that you keep it civil and respectful and within 5 minutes. However, discussion of personnel or individual members of the Common Council shall not be permitted. I expect you to be respectful, and in return, I expect the council to treat the citizens with the same respect. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record. First, we have Sue O'Brien.
Yes, I'm Sue O'Brien.
If you'd like to step forward to the microphone here. That way people can hear you at home.
I'm Sue O'Brien, and I live at 957 Watson Street, which actually is on the corner of Watson and Griswold, right before going into Barlow Park. And I'm here in regards to the truck traffic on Griswold, to offer just a little bit of history. I've lived there almost 40 years, and this isn't the first time that I've been down here to address this. I was trying to, it was at least about 30 years ago when my children were younger. And living on the corner, I mean, it was crazy with the truck traffic, and then there was a lot more at that time with the Green Giant. But a lot of trucking, and we did come down as a neighborhood, a lot of us, and I don't know what happened, but there was some reconciliation because it did improve, and the traffic wasn't that bad. My children grew, I went back to work, and now I'm retired and home, and this summer, I'm like, my goodness, this traffic is crazy again. And I mean, I've had, my sister was here a while ago and we were talking, she said, my gosh, is it noisy here all the time? I mean, and it is. And being on the corner, you know, the trucks will screech to a stop and then they rev it up to go again. And like in the summer when the windows are open and stuff, you know. But the biggest concern is just a lot of traffic. And the park is right there. There are children in the neighborhood. I guess back then, when we were here before, talking about the route going out to KK, and I guess I'm not totally sure why they don't go straight out to KK. They can go across faster. Then they can go through Griswold Street with the stop signs and the speed limit. So I know, talking to a neighbor, she said too, maybe, I don't know, with Google Maps these days, if it's an unfamiliar driver, that maybe they route them through Griswold. I'm not sure, but it's a residential area with a lot of industrial trucking that's going through, and I guess the other thing too, and you're all aware of the fire hydrant issue, and I know that wasn't the first time that's happened, and a lot of times too, when you're at that corner to turn to go to like towards the high school or whatever, you know, the semis come and they have to take it quite widely. It doesn't, you know, and I know once again, history-wise, that something did happen when we talked about this 30 years ago or whatever, and I'm not sure what's changed or whatever, but I'm just sharing my thoughts. And I had talked to my alderman, Terry, and I appreciated him following up on it, and I appreciate having the chance to talk tonight. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Jessica Wood.
Hello, my name is Jessica Wood. I live at 118 East Griswold Street. I also support what Sue was just talking about. For the past 6 years, I've been a stay-at-home, work-from-home mom, and I'm sure you've seen me outside. I'm constantly outside with my kiddos. It's a worry for me all the time, not just with regular traffic, with people on their cell phones as they drive by, but the semis that go by super quick, sometimes missing the stop sign. Because I'm always outside, I do see a lot of that. And I don't know, it's at all hours of the day and night. Like this morning, it was at 4:30, a semi truck woke me up and I was like, I knew this was happening today. And I'm like, should I write it down? I don't know. I didn't want to be annoying, but it's a lot. And for the safety of my kids and the kids 3 houses down and the kids 5 houses down, it just seems like it's the safest thing to do, especially with the school and the park and kids outside. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving into our first agenda item. It's a Class B fermented malt beverage license application for Ripon Blades at 1200 West Fond du Lac Avenue, Suite 2. And this is just a beer license, correct?
Yes. And Kate is here. Yep. Should I come up?
Yeah, if the council has any questions for you.
Hi.
Well, so if anyone would like to open with a motion or discussion,
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
moved by Jonathan, seconded by John. Discussion or questions?
Well, maybe just explain your plan and why you brought this forth for this alcohol beverage license, and also, what your plan is to make sure that it's a safe environment.
Sure, of course. So the reason for selecting just the beer is because we actually don't want to encourage a bar-type atmosphere. So we figure if somebody wants to have a beverage while they partake, that's fine, but it's, again, we're encouraging more of a family-type atmosphere where people can come and do something beside bowling, nothing against bowling, but, just to have another option in Ripon for families to do. So again, it's not the mainstay is the beverage. It's more so the facility, enjoying time with family. And we'll check IDs, the typical stuff.
Thanks.
David, do you have something? No? Okay.
Maybe just for clarification for all of us, how many licenses do we have for the city left then after this? So we will have, if we award this, we'll have 3 left?
This is just a beer license?
Just beer.
It does-
Yep, we don't want the hard liquor.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't affect the number of
Yeah, good point, I knew that.
liquor license.
And we're not allowing carry-ins either, like some of them do the bring your own. We're not allowing that at all. It's just going to be what we monitor.
And question for Naomi, they have everything in the application properly and
They do.
no issues?
They do, and Chief Owner has also reviewed the application.
Very good.
I will add that, at first when you think of blades and alcohol, that can kind of seem like maybe that doesn't go well together, but I have been at the axe throwing in both Oshkosh and Fond du Lac, both of them have that.
Yep.
And they have said that it really just adds that to, again, you mentioned families, groups come together, businesses, retreats, those types of things.
Yep, and usually you're so busy enjoying yourself, it's not even, you don't have the time to partake like that. It's more having fun throwing the axes.
Any further questions for her? Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving this Class B fermented malt beverage license application, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That is approved. All right, next item is a right of first refusal agreement between the city and school district for property, is that north of Murray Park? Adam, would you like to give some background on this?
Yeah, so I had approached the school district a couple months ago or so and talked about a property that they own north of the city limits in the town of Ripon. It's a 35.344 acre parcel. I believe it was purchased by the school district, 20 years ago or so, with the intention of possibly building a school out in that area. That has not transpired. There are other plans, so they still own the land. I reached out to them, and one of the recommendations in just our housing study and a couple other plans is to see where we could grow, and locking in lands with things like a right of first refusal. So if there's a possibility that it does sell, that the city has the first crack at it to develop. This particular parcel is pretty large. It abuts Murray Park and the trail that we just put in. It's would be more of a residential style development that the city could look at doing into the future, but the school district has met and voted to approve this, so now it is in front of you.
Questions, discussion, motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the right of first refusal.
I'll second it.
Been moved by David, seconded by Jolene. Discussion? John?
Just a question, who owns the lot just north of the school? And it would abut that property that I'm talking about. Is that city park, part of the city?
The lot just to...
Just to the north of the school, there's a rectangle with an odd shape angled lot.
That's Wolverton, isn't it? Wolverton Glen or whatever?
No, well, that's part of it. It's to the side of it.
So north of the school, there's a gap there, right?
Yeah, there's a parcel.
Yeah, that is a gentleman who formerly, I believe, owned Wolverton Glen. It's something Blue
Oh, okay.
company he runs. They're out of Nina Menasha area. I've worked with him on gaining an easement for the trail along there. The overall issue with that development, that lot there, why it hasn't been developed, is the lack of utilities that run through that area. So theoretically, if we were to develop this lot, it could unlock a parcel there as well to develop with utilities. So I'll look it up here in a minute when I pull up. That parcel is owned by Rice Enterprises of Appleton.
Thank you.
And I will just add that one reason why we were looking at this right of first refusal, Ripon has very limited developable land left. And if we want to expand and grow, we're going to have to look at solutions like this. Any further questions or discussion? Very quiet in here tonight. Hearing no more discussion, All those in favor of approving this agreement for right of first refusal with the school district, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the removal of truck route on Griswold Street. Adam?
Alan is here as well. He can certainly answer any specifics, but in your packet, there was a staff report regarding the closure of truck traffic on Griswold. Alan and his team have been working on putting together sort of a sign plan. He can certainly discuss that if you would like, but this obviously was put on the agenda after last meeting, as well as the damage to the hydrant, which was the third occurrence of that hydrant getting hit in the last couple of years. So certainly, Alan, if you want to talk about anything or if anybody has any questions, we're here to answer them.
I have nothing to add unless there's questions.
So I do have a question possibly for Lud here. If the council wants to move in this direction, is this just a motion for changing our truck route, or is there further legal hoops to jump through?
I think we determined that it is a city street. It's not it's a county highway. Is it still a county highway?
Yeah, so we've talked to the other jurisdictions, the county and the township, regarding this closure. This goes back to a conversation I had with Ryan Summers and the Fond du Lac County Highway Department. I believe Alan has followed up as well. There's really no objection or oversight from Fond du Lac County over the truck route. It is something that's been allowed, obviously. What their opinion is pretty much E, although it's marked in the city limits. The city has full jurisdiction over Griswold. It is not a county road. The county road starts at the city limits. The township has been brought into the conversation as well, because there are a couple streets that are in this area that they do not want truck traffic on if we close our route. So that is why the sign plan is a bit comprehensive. We've talked to the police department as well and have feedback from them from weight restrictions and other signs that may help better for enforcement, or just for noting that it is not a truck route. So it is generally our oversight into it. There are certain things we're learning about implements of husbandry and ag equipment that may be exempt, that we cannot and do not have oversight over because of state statute that we are exploring. But ultimately, this is our jurisdiction, and we have the authority as the council here to close it to truck routes.
So the motion would be to close Griswold to truck traffic with the exception of those permitted under state law.
And we just added closing it once all signage is installed and up, because
Would bring it back for that, or are you?
No, we just the motion is to close it. It won't go into effect until all the signs are up.
Okay,
So we'll
gotcha.
wait to get all the signs up, so it won't go into effect until the signage is up, because that could take a little time just to get it ordered and up. But we don't want to start ticketing people without proper signage. I don't think that's.
And just to follow up on what Adam said with the conversation with the township, the roads between County KK and city limits, they do not want to transfer truck traffic to, because they're not rated for full semi-traffic. So we would be, believe at the city's cost, putting signage all the way out to KK. Terry.
So when you say agricultural trucking, does that include for hauling, let's say, the green beans and corn and so forth, or does that prohibit them? I mean, where does the agricultural, is it just, we're talking just the tractors?
From what I read, an implement of husbandry is a vehicle or equipment that is designed for ag purpose. a vehicle that is designed and manufactured for over-the-road use does not qualify as an implement of husbandry.
Okay.
So
if it has.
based on that description that you used, it would be my belief that a semi hauling a load of beans or corn would not be allowed.
Okay.
Because they would be considered truck traffic.
Thank you.
I will verify that, but that was my first and second read of the.
Then Ellen.
Penalty? What's the penalty if they violate?
Violation of sign of the city is what it's going to be. So the minimum fine, probably in the neighborhood of $98.80. Maximum fine can run much higher than that. I'll let the chief kind of define what he would charge people with. Certainly violation of sign.
Yeah, certainly you're looking at a couple of things here. In reference to your first question that Terry just asked, it's based on how that vehicle is licensed. An implement of husbandry is not a licensed vehicle. So the trucks that you're talking about are licensed as either semis or semi-trailers or possibly even farm trucks, okay? So it would fall under the truck. It would not be exempt from that no truck zone. As far as fines, there's a variety of things. So if you create this under an ordinance where that is a closed area or closed to truck traffic, we could cite for failure to obey sign. That's one issue. If we choose to, let's say you have a semi that comes through there and then gets involved in an accident like we had, you can actually fine that vehicle if it's over the weight limit. And that fine is based on how much it's over the weight limit, based on the thousands of pounds that they can go. If it's an empty truck, it's a certain fine. If it's a loaded truck with, 85,000 pounds, you're talking a very, 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 very expensive citation for that.
Several thousand?
Probably tens of thousands.
Okay.
Based on the weight. However, we would only probably go in that direction if it was, if whatever the violation was a result of an accident. Otherwise, we'd probably be looking at a failure to obey sign, which is probably either a $100 citation or about a $120 citation. But it'd be an ordinance violation, but a traffic violation, just like a speeding ticket, just like running a stop sign. It's just a failure to obey sign.
Do you think that's enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And traffic violations for commercial truckers are
Oh, yes.
adhered much more than just a personal vehicle. Ellen.
I move we authorize the closure of Griswold Street to truck traffic except where state vehicles are allowed.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Alan, seconded
State law accepts vehicles.
What he said.
State law that accepts vehicles.
by exempt vehicle.
Yeah, exempt vehicles.
So motion by Ellen, seconded by Doug. Further discussion? John?
On the map, there's a letter D. Is that, if we're on County E, that means they can't turn onto Union Street anymore?
I don't believe they're allowed to turn on the Union now.
They're not, okay.
Right, and so I talked with the town on that, and we are offering that sign in an effort of cooperating with their rules.
Okay, good, thank you.
Rolling.
I would like to see, I assume that a lot of the trucks that are traveling in the area are connected with local businesses. Do we have any way of trying to contact some of them so that they know? Or I guess, so these signs will say prohibited, but will there any, in the short term, be directional so they know where to go? They know what route is approved for them. Do we have any responsibility to help with that?
That's what these signs are geared towards. If you, this page right here, the intent is to use this verbiage, but depending on the location, there would be the arrow with the circle with the line through it.
So for me, that shows where they're prohibited. It doesn't show me where they're supposed to go. That was my question. Should we help them know where to go versus where they're prohibited?
We don't know where they're ending up, so I think ultimately
Okay.
it's really up to them. I think a lot of the cases, a point was made previously about like Google, or a map GPS system. It's taking them what is arguably the shortest, quickest mileage route. They would be rerouted likely automatically like it does. That, or they'll learn very quickly that you just go up a couple miles and over and you can get back on E off of KK. So we don't know where they're necessarily going. We can guess, but ultimately it's going to be up to them. And we certainly can do some do some public education about it.
And can you clarify, what does it mean, trucks prohibited at Ripon city limits? So trucks cannot come into the city at all?
We talked to the chief, Adam, and I talked about that a little bit this morning. That might be further enhanced by trucks exceeding 10 tons prohibited. That way it's more definitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not looking at the truck that's bringing lumber in to build a house down on E or down on Griswold or anything, are we? So is this still going to be fine with that?
The chief can verify this, but I believe there is an exemption for delivery within a restricted area.
Yeah, what this is geared towards, that's why you see we had discussions this morning about incorporating, and I'm not sure it's in yours, incorporating weight limit signs with this. Which basically, if you incorporate weight limit signs on, and we talked about the locations for that on the map, I don't know if you have a copy of that. With a 10-ton weight limit, which basically any semi-truck would exceed that. Any type of like box or delivery truck, would probably not exceed that. So I don't know how else to explain it. A semi-truck empty would probably exceed that 10-ton limit or 20,000 pounds. But a straight truck for like hauling lumber, or even a truck that maybe in the fall hauls, just like a cab and a box on the back that hauls grain up to the co-op, would not be prohibited because it doesn't exceed that 10-ton weight limit. So you have a combination of things there that could be used. But if you put on the weight limit signs, you're prohibiting anything over 10 tons or 20,000 pounds, which is semis. That's what it's geared for.
Okay.
The weight limit restrictions.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you, Chief.
John?
Would we have exemptions for like a house moving semi?
Yeah.
I think that, you've got we need to address the problem here, and obviously we're more than willing to, if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I need to move this house through this area, we would be more than willing to help them with that.
I mean a semi that packs up your belongings in your house, a semi like that.
Hey,
Like a moving truck?
Like a moving semi, yeah.
same.
Yeah, it'd be the same thing.
Same thing, okay.
I mean, they just need to communicate with us that they need to get, it's kind of like, almost like the double parking downtown, or, sometimes we violate parking areas, you have to get the work done. So, and we're reasonable for that.
Sure.
If there's a task that needs to be completed or some work that needs to be done, we're not about preventing you from doing that. Just work with us and we will help you do that, or just communicate with us and we'll be clear to work with them on those things. It's not, we've never been that hard line where we're not willing to work with people if they need to. Ultimately, people need to get the work done in certain neighborhoods and that sort of thing, and we're always willing to work with them.
Okay, thank you.
In communities I worked in before, there was an exemption in the ordinance for vehicles making deliveries to an address. So in your industry, if you're building a house in a neighborhood, you've got to be able to get the concrete there. So the concrete truck would be permitted to go there. The lumber truck would be permitted to go there. The moving truck, when the new family is moving in, would be permitted to go there.
So just to clarify, it sounds like city staff is in agreement with the recommendation of adding the weight limit to the signs.
Yes.
We don't need to actually formally put that in the motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
Unless Lud wants us to.
No, I think the idea that we're attempting to eliminate truck traffic is the intent. The execution, I think we've clarified the point that we're going to use weight limit signs to let people know. Certainly, you raised a good question, how do we direct people around that? That certainly is something that should be considered. So if you're out on 49, keep going. Go out to the stop sign and take a right outside of town to go to Green Lake or wherever you're headed in that direction. So that, I think, has got to kind of be looked at and probably can be identified in some way.
The intent of the signs is to keep them from going down a path where they're going to end up at a dead end and have to make a reverse movement.
Right. So keep them moving.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the removal of the truck route on Griswold Street, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Moving on to the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $1,195,000 of general obligation promissory notes, Series 2023A. Adam?
You had a sale report on your desk. Lisa from Ellers is here. She can briefly talk that over and kind of give you the update on how the sale went, which occurred earlier this morning.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lisa Chobotuski with Ellers. So we did have the bids this morning. You did receive 5 bids, which is good. Anything 3 or more is considered good. The lower bidder was Northland Securities, and they came in at a true interest cost of 3.9632%, which is slightly under our pre-sale estimate of 4.1242%. The high bid was at 4.519%, so that just shows doing a competitive sale has its benefits in saving on interest rates. I wasn't going to go through the tables. They're the same tables that you've seen before, just updated with the sale results. Moody's, we did a rating call with Moody's, and they did affirm your A1 rating. The rating report is also included in here, and then we just have an updated bond buyer index. I'm just showing interest rates are continuing to increase recently.
And they're non-taxable.
Correct. Yep, and the sizing did not change. So in August, when you authorized the sale, it was at the $1,195,000.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of $1,195,000 general obligation promissory note, Series 2023A.
Second.
Then moved by Doug, seconded by Ellen. Any discussion or questions?
This is maybe just a dumb question. So before, our motion was just to authorize them to go to the sale?
Yes.
And this is the motion to accept the bid?
Accept the bid and borrow the money.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Any other?
And at some point, should interest rates go lower, at some point in the life of this bond, we can also refinance.
Correct.
So we could get a lower interest rate in the future.
Well, on that note, does Ellers, do you kind of monitor that and make a recommendation, or is that on us to monitor that?
No, we do monitor. Usually it's about every 6 months. We monitor to see if any debt issues would have favorable reasons to refinance.
And there's a cost to refinance also?
Yep, you would have to go through the same process. Correct.
And just to that point, the cost of this service this time, $53,506. So it's not a small amount of money to refinance, but.
I thought it was.
Careful to monitor.
Yes. So if the interest rate drops significantly, it would be worth it. A small amount, it wouldn't.
And non-taxable bonds are usually at a lower percentage rate than taxable bonds, sometimes by as much as 2%.
They're typically lower, yep.
Any further question or discussions? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor of approving the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $1,195,000 in general obligation promissory notes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. All right. One second. All right. Next item is an ordinance to amend section 22.20.050, applicability exemptions and waivers of the municipal code for erosion control and storm water management. This was an item that was brought forward to the full council from the Plan Commission, who approved it last Wednesday, and recommend approval from the full council. Adam, would you like to give the overview?
In your packet, you should have the draft ordinance. All it literally is doing is changing section 22.0B3 from 7,500 square feet to 20,000 square feet. Accompanying the draft is a memo from Public Works Director, Stormwater Management, and Erosion Control. You can see kind of examples of other communities around here that have certain triggers for stormwater management, and ours at 7,500 is relatively low standard to trigger that level of review. The state of Wisconsin requires permitting at 1 acre or more. So more or less, this is, that's 43,000 plus or minus square feet. So this is less than a half acre. Ultimately, the concept here is to lower the restriction or higher the restriction to 20,000 square feet as more of a regulatory development aspect for a developer to not trigger certain costs and burdens to the development at a smaller size. So for example, if somebody were to build a small 5,000 square foot warehousing building with a parking lot, you know, relatively small project, that could trigger stormwater management, right? Which could lead to tens of thousands of dollars of additional cost. So we're talking studying the construction of ponds, things of that nature. This would move that to 20,000 square feet, so a little bit more flexibility. Most larger developments are going to trigger the state of Wisconsin. Regardless of any of this, larger development is going to trigger the need, as well as there is section D, which section 4, right after section 3 in the ordinance that says the city may at any time require stormwater management if the development activities have some sort of significant impact. So Alan certainly wrote the memo. He can speak to that. You can ask any questions. We're here to answer them.
And like Adam said about the importance of that last clause, if we find that they're developing, say, right up against Silver Creek, we can certainly use that clause to say, we require you to do the stormwater management process because of where you're doing the development. So it is within the city's scope to monitor more strictly in some areas.
Help me understand, when someone would, so right now, if they're above 7,500, they have to come to the city to go through some of these checks and balances, correct? And if they were, now what we're saying is they don't have to come to us, or do they still have to notify us of their plans if they're now below 20,000 square feet?
They will have to come to the city for building permits anyhow, no matter what development they're doing. The threshold here would, at currently 7,500 square feet, would trigger a waste or a stormwater management process, which could include retention ponds and similar things, which, in his example, for a 5,000 square foot building, a retention pond could potentially almost double the cost of the project, where the city's stormwater system is more than capable of handling that water.
So yes, so basically what it does at 7,500 square feet right now, what the ordinance does is trigger the same level of study as an acre property that the DNR considers, right? So we're at a far less standard than the DNR. We're not able to be less restrictive, we're able to be more restrictive. So we've set that at 7,500. But 7,500 square feet, which is the size of a typical residential lot, if that is disturbed and becomes an impervious surface in any project, comprehensive stormwater management has to be submitted to the city of Ripon. That process starts with the building inspector. It gets forwarded on to Public Works. It gets forwarded on to MSA, our engineer, to review. So it does cost us dollars to review that, right? So we're looking at where water is going. It costs the developer dollars to design that out, because you certainly can't just submit and comply with this level of ordinance by doing it on a piece of paper. You need a design engineer professional to say, this is how we're designing the property to ensure that we are complying with your requirements. What we are saying is we will bump that up to 20,000. So we sort of pick that number. If you say a half acre, well, somebody will just kind of skirt that and be like, I'm developing, it's just 100 square feet less than a half acre. We're saying 20,000 square feet. That's a standard that is in Oshkosh, Fond du Lac. You see other communities as well. Green Bay is a half acre. So we're just trying to become a little bit more, in line with, our peers or the surrounding areas, and certainly understand that there's that kind of catch-all clause as well. But that's how the process works here now. Anybody doing what would be considered a pretty small project is required to go through a process. The other side of this, if somebody were to, say, have an existing building and they wanted to expand a parking lot, right? Or they wanted to add a driveway or create more impervious surface, and they go above the 7,500 square feet, that triggers stormwater management. So, it can really impact primarily small business development. The bigger, larger development is going to be bigger, and able to afford in the project, that project cost of stormwater management. A lot of this stuff now is frankly, a burden for small business when they're trying to do smaller projects or make adjustments to their property. So we have people complying with it. Most of the time, it gets forwarded to Plan Commission as part of a site plan review. The Plan Commission, just asks, has stormwater been addressed? The answer is yes or no. We certainly still can ask those questions. If the project is under 20,000, there will still need to be a site plan review from the Plan Commission, because that gets triggered at 500 square feet for most, which is, again, low, for most commercial and industrial development. So there's still a lot of checks in place.
You have the answer. I wanted to make sure that we're still knowing about, and so it still a site plan still has to be reviewed, even though we're going above this. Because I wish I knew how much the burden is on small business, because I don't want to stifle small business, but I think we always have to realize our location being in the Green Lake area watershed, and just how important our ecosystem is in this area, maybe more than other places. And so I don't want to do anything to put that in jeopardy. But if it's putting an undue burden, are there things that people would do that would mean that we have more runoff that we're not aware of, that we're now allowing by passing this?
There's always in development the added impervious surface. What level at which is it a burden on the environment, and what level is our watershed contributing to Silver Creek and the watershed in a negative way? in my conversations and just understanding of it all, that is the balancing act here.
Yeah.
It's the environmental concern versus the regulatory concern on a business. I'm not saying that this immediately stifles every development. I'm also saying that, on a property that's 7,500 square feet, the likelihood that that's going to impact the watershed, is it going to be massive? The state says an acre. That's 6 times, 5.5, 6 times higher than what our current standard is. So, that's why the 20,000 is there. We feel that that's a reasonable level, as well as, again, the catch-all of if something is in a floodplain, in a regulated area, wetland, if there are issues like that, they're still going to have to follow all of those as well, right? They're still going to have to follow wetland regulations, floodplain zoning. We just updated the entire ordinance on that. So this is just another component of it. So is there an impact? Certainly there can be. We can also make people comply other ways, or certainly we've had a recent case of this. This kind of has been, just give you an example of a small project that likely is going to get killed over, and this is not the only reason we're talking about this, but what it does is, so for example, somebody may be able to put in an impervious surface under 7,500 square feet, but then they have to, if they go above that, right, they have to put in stormwater management. Well, their property may not be large enough to then, to accommodate that without encroaching on a floodplain. Well, then you have to basically build the entire structure, meaning the pond, with flood barriers and protection. So there's layer upon layer of regulation that can prohibit certain development or impact it. So there's ultimately a lot of layers to this. This is one component, albeit important. The standard we're seeing in areas that have equally as sensitive areas. I mean, Green Bay, the Bay of Green Bay is a protected area. They're at 20,000. Certainly Fond du Lac, Oshkosh all have stormwater management issues. So where there are those sensitive areas, we can certainly put a higher standard.
We can put in a higher standard, or
Yeah,
we do right
ordinance.
now have a higher standard?
With the ordinance in place of this section 4,
Yeah.
where if there's a concern, we can request the applicant put in place stormwater management at under 20,000.
Yeah.
But the starting point at what triggers, at 7,500 is very low.
And just to give you an idea of what types of businesses are impacted by the 7,500 foot rule, most gas stations, the West End restaurants, like the fast food that have parking lots with buildings and drive-throughs, almost all of them were grandfathered in under an old rule, but if they want to make a change, that might trigger having to have a retention pond added to their business. So just the business that we currently have, we are making it so they cannot ever remodel or add 2 square feet of sidewalk if we keep this rule the way we have it. It's extremely restrictive. But you are correct, we do have to balance the environmental aspects of going to the larger limit, which, looking at the other communities in the area across the state, 20,000 seems to be what most communities of most sizes are in that neighborhood, either 20,000 or half acre. We selected the 20,000 as opposed to the half acre. There are still some more restrictive, but there are other communities that are just following the state guideline of 1 acre.
My one last question is, of course I don't want to stifle local business, but I think what's frustrating is that we are the size of a community that I understand right now it's not in our budget to have a sustainability manager that larger cities would have. And I think what's hard is that, once you go up higher, it's going to be really hard to bring it back. Clearly it was set for a reason at 7,500 at one time. And again, I think we need to know that we're in a unique area based on our watershed, And, so if each business, to your point, if they want to change their parking lot and the one next to them want to in the next one, but you have no one over looking at the environmental impact, if everyone just paves over this and now they get to pave over that and they get to pave over that, I feel frustrated that I don't feel like we have good oversight as a larger plan as to making sure that, there's one business, sure they can do this, but now what about the next property over? I wish we would be talking about larger wastewater plans. And so I guess I feel hesitant to be looser on something when that's really we're kind of being the sustainability manager right now as a larger council, it feels, because we don't have the ability to, maybe others have other insight into that.
Well, I would say that looking at the other communities that have the 20,000, some of them are larger communities, like Green Bay is at the half acre, and I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine that a city that size does have a sustainability person, or at least someone who is thinking about that.
Right.
So we're using the expertise of these other cities and where we came up with the 20,000.
But my point is that person would be able to really look at, oh, is this a concern? It's going to be hard for us, I think. I guess it'll be up to the Plan Commission to really know about the areas to be, because to Adam's point, at any point, if there's an area that we need to be more concerned about, it's now up to the commission, I suppose, to quote unquote bring that forward. We don't really have a larger oversight of someone taking note of that.
There's always, in these sensitive areas, there's other regulations. So, I mean, in terms of staff and review of things and taking things to Plan Commission, I think there's an understanding that, this is a component of other environmental regulations that are already in place that could trigger additional requests and requirements from a Plan Commission or just city staff saying, look, you're in an environmentally sensitive area. You're disrupting 10,000 square feet. It's pretty, it's undisturbed right now. We want to see stormwater management. We can do that under this ordinance. So it's just kind of, looking at the overall impact, if something's new or existing, if it's expanded or it's just replacing or whatever it is. So I think there's balances in place to still have review. We understand the importance of the watershed, and Alan and I have been working a lot and talking to the GLA about how we can improve through a street sweeping, right? Like buying a better street sweeper. There are other things we're doing that I think are impactful and can certainly, when we're looking at this, we've had these conversations internally, and we understand the impact of this. We also see the other things that we're doing and how they could be approved. Ultimately, there's a thing called an MS4 permit that communities 10,000 and larger are required to perform. It's stormwater management permitting. The city is not under that regulation from the DNR's perspective or a state statute perspective. Many communities that have that MS4 have a higher threshold, and the MS4 is Alan had to do it in Kimberly. It's a pretty comprehensive stormwater management program for a community to follow. So, this is a pretty standard number, and we feel at some point, the city will be in a position where MS4 becomes probably a regulation we have to follow. So that is in our thought process while discussing this and other things that we're doing, as simple as street sweeping. How a vacuum street sweeper reduces particles and phosphorus and leaves and everything out of the watershed better than our current sweeper. So, I think there's a balancing act that we're trying to play as well.
And then my last question for me is, so you said you talked with the GLA. Did they make a statement to you?
I talked with them about street sweeping.
But not about this?
No.
Do we have a motion yet?
I don't believe so.
Could I make a motion?
Absolutely.
To approve and amend section 22.20.05 5-0.
I'll second it.
Been moved by John, seconded by Doug. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the ordinance to amend section 22.20.050, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That is approved. Last agenda item tonight is an ordinance to amend section 18.32.030, construction requirements of, or construction requirements of municipal code for private swimming pools. Adam?
So this one comes to you because of the zoning board of appeals. This is kind of a simple one. It adds subsection D as an alternate to the section above, which talks about fencing requirements, a lockable powered safety cover that complies with ASTM F1346-91 specifications may be permitted by the building inspector if adequate measures are in place that prevent such pool from being a safety hazard. So essentially, the zoning board of appeals, they issued a variance that allowed a resident to put in a powered pool cover that has a certain standards in place that allow it to close and be security coded, as well as it has weight limits. So, you know, basically, I wouldn't say an elephant could get on it, but certainly a couple people, and it will not collapse. So they requested, because it's kind of opened the door, they requested that the ordinance be amended to allow that activity, you know, because they didn't see a giant issue with allowing that. Certainly, this is a public safety realm as well as kind of a building code and building inspector role. Certainly, just adding the subsection allows for that. In the previous applicant, just to give you an example, they were not required to have a fence. They could put this in. They were in kind of a more secluded private area of town. They had a code on it, and more or less it can time out and close, as well as their insurance company said this is an alternative that is acceptable to us over a fence. So pool covers have come a long way. This isn't like you know, the solar blue floating cover. This is a powered on tracks automatic pool cover that is about as costly as a fence at times. So to do both could be excessive, but that is why it's brought in front of you. They requested it.
Just one question for you. First, it's my understanding that this type of cover meets the either state or national code.
That's the ASTMF, yeah.
Yeah. John?
Just a request to add maybe like 1 or 2 lines to D. Like in C, you actually specifically call out that when it's not in use, the doors have to be locked and the ladder has to be removed. And in D, it actually doesn't say the cover actually needs to be on. It just says the cover needs to be there. So I guess my request is that, no, I'm like nitpicking here, but like, just like we did in C where we're saying, you know, when it's not in use, close and lock the door, to D, when it's not in use, close the cover and lock it. So, it's my only request.
Would you like to make a motion to approve this with that word?
Sure. I make a motion to approve ordinance to amend section 18.32.030 with the addition that in subsection D, we add wording that specifies that when the pool's not in use, the cover needs to be closed and locked.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Been moved by Jonathan, seconded by Terry. Discussion or questions? David?
I have a question as far as, I'm not familiar with these covers, so the reason you put a fence around a pool is to keep a kid from walking in there and going in the pool, right? So you can't take the fence down when you like go inside for dinner, have a family emergency, have to leave quickly, forget to put the cover on. Is there any way that they can forget to put the cover on? Or just decide maybe it's broke and it just stays open?
That was the intent of my adding it. That was the intent of what I was thinking. I was picturing the broken part of that.
Right.
So somebody breaks it, but that's why I'm adding
Or
that
if you leave.
to it.
What if you just leave? You can't take a fence down, but you can leave this open, and it leaves, there's a chance a kid can go fall in the pool.
Playing devil's advocate, you can't take the fence down, but you could leave the gate open.
Not if you have a gate that, with the spring that closes, which you should.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a locked gate at that stage.
It's just a lot easier to keep a gate closed than it is to because it's motorized and it's going to take a couple of minutes. If you're going to go inside, you're not going to close it to go inside and eat or whatever and then come back out. It's not really worth the trouble, right? But it's easy to close a gate. I mean, it just seems to me we're asking for trouble with something like this. I mean, I don't know the house, I don't know where they are, but to me, it's too easy to not put the cover on. You're leaving it open. I just don't like it.
And just for clarity, that variance was approved?
Yes. So, I mean, we sort of opened the door for it. That's what the Zoning Board of Appeals has said, is they would like clarification on this, because it has been allowed. Obviously, from a safety perspective, that is the balancing act of this ordinance. Is a fence is a physical barrier, okay, that prevents somebody from getting to the pool, right? If something goes awry there and it's open and somebody's unattended, or they jump over the fence and there's no cover on that pool, the ultimate safety measure here really is a fence with this cover, because when it's closed, then you can't fall in, right?
Right.
So, at that point, what's more important, the cover or the fence? And what's the appropriate standard to put in place? That's really the balancing act here, whether you remove the idea of a fence and allow this. Ultimately, the combination of both is probably the safest.
Yes.
But you can't force everybody to spend the money on a pool cover that,
Right.
that does this. So there's always, with a pool, there's always a risk. There's always a what if.
That is true, but
Always.
the fence just seems more secure to me. It's just too easy to close it, and I see too many issues with having an open pool.
John?
If we have the proper wordage in the ordinance, how does, an accident is an accident. How does that make the city liable for anything?
That would be the key, and that's when the city administrator and I discussed this, that I wasn't at the variance hearing. That's this with the ASTM specifications. I think I was led to believe that it closes automatically if there is no one in the pool. And again, that's what I was led to believe. So I have some of Dave's same concerns regarding whether or not this is sufficient to protect the public. And your question is well taken. Does it protect the city? And one would suggest that if these are the standards, it does. It's saying you took measures to ensure that the public has a safety clause, if you will, from drowning in a neighbor's pool, kind of thing. Not that anybody can ever be fail-safe, but I think that's the term here. And if the insurance company is going to cover these people without a fence, that certainly is your greatest level of scrutiny, because that's where the first pocket is. And the city, having or not having the ordinance, is not necessarily going to be the direction that somebody's going to go for liability.
Yep.
So it's just being that we've taken the steps in the past to try not to create an attractive nuisance. Is this an acceptable alternative? So it's a real debate that we're gauging here. So I think Dave's point is well taken. And I think that all the city administrator was doing was reacting to the fact that the variance was granted in this case. So on balance, I think given the fact that there are some questions being heard by the council this evening, I probably would ask that this be tabled. Nothing's going to change in terms of someone wanting a variance again, and we consider it on the basis of the merits of the location, of the circumstances. This was just the city administrator being proactive, and I have no problem with that. Leaving, the zoning board of appeals to say, okay, we already heard this. Why are we hearing it again? But given the kind of questions that are here, I guess I want to look a little bit further into this standard and how that does play into protection of the public and protection of the city.
I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of cover we're talking about here on D. And none of us, I don't think any of us know, exactly what's going here. If it was some kind of clam that would automatically close
if somebody's
then you
out
would
of the
have, but I don't know if that's what it is, or if it's just something that you have to take two people and it's a hassle to roll it back on.
I think it's a button, it's automatic.
Yeah,
I want to say it isn't a manual thing.
Right.
That I'm certain of. Correct, Adam? This is electronic.
So in this particular case, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
It needs to be
Which is why they okayed it.
Needs to be what?
It needs to be powered.
Powered, right.
So.
Not manual.
Yep, it says lockable powered.
Do we know if a lot of other cities have this as part of their?
I don't think we know that.
Yes, they do.
They do?
Yes.
As an alternative?
Ripon has it. Sue Leahy deals with this. It's the same kind of situation. Somebody brought it forward to Ripon. They put it into the ordinance as an acceptable alternative because of a similar situation. The Zoning Board of Appeals was on 8/2 of 20, so it's last month. And I can certainly forward that information out to the council as an example of what was approved.
So we have a few options, and then I'll come to you. We can continue discussion, take a vote. We could table it indefinitely, or we could withdraw the motion and then bring it back up at another time if we would need to. But Ellen?
I would not recommend tabling it. I would recommend postponing it, so you don't have to go through all the rigmarole of bringing it back.
Off the table.
What, Lud?
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
okay.
you have to take it off the table.
Yeah.
Do you need me to withdraw my motion?
No, we could take a motion to postpone discussion to the next meeting. That is also an option. Would you like to make that motion?
I will make that motion, that
right,
we'll
is there-
postpone until the next meeting.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
I'm confused.
The motion to postpone discussion to the next meeting is made by Ellen, seconded by David. Any discussion on postponement?
Is somebody going to look up the specs on it so we have an answer?
We had a whole packet.
Well, yeah.
I think it's to give it to the council so they understand the operation of it.
I think if I had a better understanding of it, I'd feel more comfortable voting for it. Right now, I just don't feel comfortable voting for it.
For the next meeting, if we could have more information on what the national code that's referenced covers, as well as other communities that have adopted. All those in favor of postponing discussion till the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are postponed. We'll get more information for the next meeting. Good discussion. All right, project updates and staff reports. Start at the back, PD? No? Public Works? Alan, you have anything for us?
Replacement sidewalk will start tomorrow. The saw grinding, early to mid-October. They're getting us on their schedule at this point in time. Still coordinating with the county on crack filling and the patches due to cost limitations that we work with the county on. It's likely that we will only get 2 large patches on Scott Street done. And the Oshkosh Street Railroad crossings that Watco is planning for the week of October 9th.
Thank you.
So in the microphone, the Oshkosh Street Railroad crossings, October
9th.
The week of October 9th.
I will say I fielded more complaints about that crossing in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 3 years. But I have an answer for him this time. All right. Naomi, you have anything for us?
No.
Adam?
So in your package, I just did a quick update for September, so just to let you know some staffing changes. So Jeremy Jess did resign as utility manager, but has continued to work with the city in the wastewater department. So thank you for him, his service as utility manager. So in the interim, I will be taking on the utility manager role, and while we evaluate what to do with the position, there's, some options out there, whether it be just continuing on with it as its current form, to reorganize and decide, if there's a better structure or way to manage that position in the utilities. So we will be working through that. The next thing is just if you would like to set a meeting next week, Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday night, the Ripon Area Fire District has its budget hearing as well as its monthly meeting on the 3rd.
Okay, so we can, I want to try to get this scheduled. So Monday, if that works for people, I can start it earlier as well. We don't have to do it at like 7. We can start it at 5 or 6. We can do whatever best works for your schedules. The whole presentation will be pretty much a summary of the budget with then kind of a department by department overview. Yes?
How long will it take? An hour?
An hour, well, it depends on how long you want me to talk, Last year, I believe, was an hour and a half of me talking, so it's a pretty comprehensive look at it, and we try to be as detailed as we can be. Ultimately, we try to break out some of the things like some of the lesser important, budget items, like some of the extra budgets, water and wastewater, they're kind of standard. So I would say an hour, hour and a half. It depends on any suggestions or debate by the council on any items, so.
I personally would not mind doing it on Tuesday if we did it earlier in the evening.
No,
No.
I won't be here. It takes me a couple hours to prepare for those meetings.
We can move into
Wednesday might be good.
Wednesday.
Mondays.
Is there a historic preservation meeting on Wednesday?
Yeah.
What's wrong with
Monday is fine.
We'll set with
I've got other
Monday.
meetings on Monday too.
What?
I got a meeting on Monday as well.
Okay.
What time?
Mine starts at about 7.
Okay, so we can do it earlier. We can start here at 5, 5:30, 6 o'clock.
I could meet at 5:30, not really before, but 5:30 would work.
Want to roll for 5:30 Monday?
5:30 is fine.
Does that work for Doug?
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll try it.
Thank you.
We'll get you a draft out of the budget. Hopefully by Thursday, we'll get you what has been done so far. to begin the review, and then, like I said, we will go over it. Just a reminder, District 3 Council vacancy position has posted, so that is moving forward as planned. There's just a small update on the state highway project. So we did receive, let me just pull it up here so I have the best information. But so the state highway, the state did solicit the process for design of the state highway project. So Mead and Hunt was the selected consultant. There's a long wait, but I just thought I'd let everybody know that the letting date or the bid date is September 11th of 2029. So we have about 6 years to wait, but 60% design will be done by 2027. So but they have selected a consulting firm for that project. And then finally, the mayor, myself, and then Mandy Kimes, the executive director of the chamber, have launched our business outreach program. So today we had a nice sit down with Walsworth, and we will continue to outreach local businesses, big, small, and have conversations, just learn about their business, learn about the challenges, opportunities, and just try to better communicate and make connections in our business community. So if you have anybody interested or work for a business that you'd like us to have a sit down with and just have a conversation, that's really what we're offering, and see if there are ways we can work together. We'd be happy to sit down. That's all I have.
Can we ask a question? Adam, the utility manager is a full-time position. Is there anything we need to know to support you in taking this on right now?
Oh, that's good. Between the, right now, operations are steady, right? So between the lead water operators, and frankly, having Jeremy back into the treatment plant role sort of solidifies operations. What we really have to look at is the oversight structure, and the planning and processes and teamwork and all of that are really what we're looking at. I have zero concerns with the operations, short of just your standard, I don't know, hydrant getting hit or whatever crazy stuff can happen. Generally speaking, Dave LaViolet and Kevin Donahue are our leads. They're taking a little bit more active in a role, just working with me. But I have no concerns. A year from now, if we're talking about it, I'll be a little more concerned. But a lot of the projects I've been involved with, so I'm not uncomfortable with doing the role at this time. And then Alan's in the background as well with his staff and whatnot. So certainly, I think we can weather the storm for a while we, just make the best decision for the organization and community moving forward. Don't rush. Just be patient, please. Thank you.
Any future agenda items or comments from council? Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved by Doug, seconded by David. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:19. Thank you.